Ali Albarigo have been sharing how to take your martial arts school to the next level. Welcome to another edition of SchoolOwnerTalk.com. Now here's your host, Dwayne and Ali.
Hello again, Dwayne Brummett here with Ali Albarigo, SchoolOwnerTalk.com. Ali, great to be with you today, sir.
Yes, absolutely. It's a great day, man. We have some really great guests today with us. I'm super excited about it and can't wait to get into it. And let me quickly do a quick introduction. So these gentlemen run a program that I feel is just imperative to the martial arts, and it's about getting students, and it's called GetKarateStudents.com. And we have two guests, Jon Evans, and Jon has one of the best, if not the best, track records in the martial art industry, and has helped hundreds of schools all around the globe getting more students. And Travis, he also is, traveled with sports leagues coaching to the martial art business. He's coached players in the NFL and worked with hundreds of martial arts school owners at over 4 continents. So these guys know their stuff, and it's super exciting to have you guys on the show. So without further ado, welcome, guys, and thanks for being here with us.
Awesome to be here. Thanks. It's awesome.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we could jump right in with questions, and then as I'll monitor the Facebook feed too, just in case anyone has questions on there as well, and we'll be able to field those questions too. So Dwayne, did you want to start off with some questions?
I do.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. I had seen your information quite a while ago.
And what really stuck out was
our youngest. Well, he's in college now. Travel volleyball. And so we would always drive him up from our house to a place called Hallmark where he would practice. And there was a Taekwondo studio there is a Taekwondo studio that's there. And I would, when I would sometimes I'd sit outside and wait for what's going on. And I got to see the people that owned it. Because I had seen in one of your ads their pictures. Like I saw their studio. And I could see it's funny because where I'm sitting watching them, there's like almost where you took the picture. Of course, you were inside the building, but where you took the picture of the students and then teaching and stuff like that. So, I originally thought,
I guess, and I don't know if I asked you this or not, but I thought maybe you were from or near me in Joliet. Did I ask you guys that?
Yeah, so I'm actually I grew up in Joliet, so that's funny.
Okay, yeah.
And then my son went to Frankfurt Black Belt Academy, which is on Lairway.
That's the one.
Yeah, so that was actually the first school we ever worked with. My son was, really young, started there as a white belt, got all the way to black belt, and so that was I actually took those pictures physically, like.
What's the time frame? When was he training there?
Oh, let's see. Gosh, we moved here in 2018. Do you know? I don't even know. When did I move here?
Probably around, because I think you got here just after me. Yeah. So probably 2018. Sounds about right.
We're right outside of Georgia right now, or right outside of Atlanta in Georgia. We moved here in 2018. So he had just gotten his black belt right before that. So it took him probably, gosh, I don't know, 4 or 5 years to get, through all the ranks there.
I bet you I probably have seen you. Didn't know it was him. The many times that I had been there and just parked and watched him. So that's even funnier now that we're getting to talk about it. So that is the first time I was ever introduced to you guys was because I know that place. So the only now for both of you, the only martial arts background that you have is that your son did martial arts. Neither one of you had done martial arts, right?
No, I did a little bit of like jiu-jitsu because my friend's brother was the teacher at the Park District, and we rolled around as teenagers, but I never really got serious about it.
I did it when I was younger. I did Taekwondo for my parents. Actually, they had just gotten divorced. Yeah. And we moved across the country with my mom to Pennsylvania. And, she was just looking for, good positive structure for my sister and myself. So we did Taekwondo for probably 3 or 4 years. So kind of like first grade through fifth grade. And then we actually, it's funny, right before COVID hit, this time last year, we're on that kind of 1 year anniversary of all that stuff. John and I, a bunch of friends of ours from church, there's a Krav Maga school right next to our church. And the landlord of the Krav Maga school is also the landlord of the church building. So we were literally like the week before, or the week after COVID hit, we were scheduled to start Krav. And then that kind of threw, we super focused on the business at that point.
Yeah.
And then really this last week, we're going to get back into that. So we're going to start Krav Maga here as soon as we get the schedule going.
Yeah, we're trying to get a bunch of the guys from the church. To be honest, it's so that we don't have to spar with anybody that we don't know.
Yeah, so, it's only even numbers, right? So if there's a fifth guy, he needs to bring some, because I don't want to spar with strangers. I'm at that point in my life.
Yeah, there you go.
So why, with you guys' background, I'm curious, why did you choose to help martial artists? Why did you choose the martial arts industry to do what you do as opposed to any other industry? I'm curious.
It's funny. It's like I honestly didn't choose it at first. My background's in marketing and in sales. I got my chops in the timeshare business. So if you've ever been to one of those presentations, those guys are super trained in sales and maybe too much. But that was sort of my background. I got into digital marketing after a little while and started studying that and Facebook ads. And I started a digital marketing agency like a lot of people have done recently over the last 5 years. And I had every kind of business you can imagine: chiropractors, realtors, tanning salons. I mean, just like every other digital marketing agency, and was basically doing the same thing, just generating leads so that they could have names and phone numbers of people to call. And the whole time I was building that business was while my son was at Frankfurt Black Belt Academy going up through the ranks. And there was a day I remember he was at a tournament and we snapped a picture of him and he's holding his trophies. And the same day, how Facebook does the on this day 4 years ago?
Yeah, this time. Yeah.
Right. So we saw a picture of his first day of Taekwondo and his white belt, and he looked so little compared to the new picture. And I just said to my wife, like, my gosh, look at how much he's grown. He's grown so much. And then later that day after the tournament, we had gone back to his school and I was looking around and I was thinking, man, as much as he's grown over these few years, this place hasn't grown at all. They probably need some marketing. So it never dawned on me that they would be a good client for digital marketing because they were always doing stuff in the community. We were always with them out at the parades and out at the booths and doing all that kind of stuff and just volunteering to help. But I never thought to approach them as a client. So I finally approached him and I was like, hey, what do you guys do for marketing? And he said what pretty much every school says to us right now. Well, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And I said, how's it work? And he said, well, we've been at 50 students for the last 15 years. Some will come, some will go, some will come. Excuse me. So we started a campaign for them. And within 6 months, they doubled in size. They went from 50 to 100 students, like fast. And there was a few times I had to talk them off the ledge and say, they'd call me and say, the classes are too full. We need to turn off the ads. And I'd be like, no, we can't turn off the ads. You guys have a goal. You told me what your goal was. We got to figure out how to make it work. And so they were just so overwhelmed with the success of things. And I really enjoyed working with them because, he was the type of guy, like a lot of martial arts school owners, that have integrity. They do what they say they're going to do. They have respect. All the stuff that they're teaching on the floor, they're reflecting it. If they're not, then, it's almost like they hold themselves accountable to that stuff. So I really enjoyed working with him. He referred us a few of his colleagues because he's in a big organization, the ATA, I'm sure you're familiar with. And we got a few different referrals. Then I started reaching out to some school owners, and pretty soon, all the tanning salons and the chiropractors and the realtors and everybody, they sort of filtered themselves out. And then one day I looked at the books and it was all martial arts schools and like one health coach. And I was like, wow, all we're doing is helping martial arts schools get more students. So I rebranded the company as Get Karate Students, and then just never looked back. A couple of times we took on clients, like we took on a dance studio once, and that was just a nightmare. And that maybe
there's a couple more outliers, but I mean that's 99%.
So now it's just like we're 100% at. A lot of the guys don't even, at first, when we first talk to them, they're like, oh, you don't own a school? You talk so much like a school owner. Like we would have just.
I had a friend. So growing up in my high school years, as I said, I did, Taekwondo when I was younger, elementary school. In my high school years, I was playing sports outside of martial arts. And I recently talked to a friend who's a martial arts school owner back home in Philadelphia area. And he and I were just talking. I was asking him questions about his business and just kind of just getting to know what he has going on. And he was like, well, hey, man, I didn't know you were such an expert at martial arts. Like, we should have hung out more in high school. Like, I didn't know this was like your area. And that was really good validation that, we understood. And I just from an industry standpoint, there's just an inherent desire to get better. Martial arts school owners and because it's the same thing as athletics, right? It is athletics. And there's an inherent desire to get better at everything. Because if you don't have that drive, then you're probably just kind of prodding along. So it's an industry where, by getting in the industry of martial arts, you're already kind of saying, hey, I have this inherent desire to get better at whatever I put my hands on.
So you called this an athletic, right? This is an athletics, and you guys are supporting these athletics, right?
Athletics, right?
So would you consider yourself an athletic supporter? I mean, generally a jockstrap?
My wife actually just said something to me about that yesterday.
How did you two hook up? How did you guys come to be together?
So that's actually a really interesting story. And we had moved here in 2018. You had moved here in
2017. I was down in South Florida for about 15 years, and then we moved here.
And when we moved here, I already had a couple of schools that we were working with, and we were kind of building things up. And it just took off so fast. And I had to actually hire somebody. And at the same time, Travis was a school teacher. Maybe you want to share that.
Yeah, I taught high school and coached football and lacrosse for 13 to 15 years, depending on who you ask. And I was just transitioning out of that. It was just 15 years of teaching high school and coaching, as you guys know, it's a lot. 70-hour, 80-hour work weeks. So I kind of was driven to move away from that. I didn't know what it meant. I knew God was kind of calling me to something different. And then Jon and I, we actually just plugged into the same church as Jon, probably around the same time. Yeah. And then we just started to hang out in different settings. And there was actually one time Jon came over, they came over for dinner, him and his family. And he was asking me a bunch of questions. And I was kind of like, he's asking me these questions. I'm very analytical. I'm always processing. And I was like, he's asking me questions because he wants to talk about a business relationship. So then we had a call a couple days later, and it was very funny because Jon's very scheduled. Like his wife can't get on the phone with him unless she schedules a call. So he was like, all right, we're sitting there at dinner. He's like, all right, yeah, let's talk next week. Here's the link to my calendar. Like while we're eating like cheeseburgers.
Didn't I do that? Did I do that to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
I got him. He's converted now.
Yeah. Yeah, Dwayne,
you do that to me too, Dwayne.
Yeah, I do
Dwayne does that to me as well.
Yeah. So I jumped on a call with Jon, and I thought it was gonna be a casual conversation. And an hour later, I hung up the phone and still didn't really know what was going on. But I was just like, hey, this is definitely where I want to move to next. And I mean, it's been a couple years now. It's been awesome.
Let me back up
That's cool.
a little bit before that, because before I hired Travis, my son, who was the black belt, was actually doing some work for me. He was 10 or 12.
Somewhere around there. Who knows anymore, man?
I don't know. He was young.
I just know he doesn't want to hang out with you anymore. That's how old he is.
Yeah, he's crossed the threshold of not wanting to hang out with me anymore. But he was I was so overwhelmed with onboarding new clients that I had to systematize it to the point where anybody could do it. Not to say that my son is a very bright kid, but he's young. He's little. I mean, he might have been 10 or 12, somewhere in that range. And I needed somebody to start setting up these accounts because I was talking to a lot of them on the phone. A lot of them were signing up, but we still had to set up all their ads. We had to get all the automation set up. So I went in and I built basically a how-to course for him, my son, to start setting these up. And I was paying him like $50 when they'd set it up. If any of our clients at the time would have known that this 10-year-old was setting them up, they probably would have, their egos really would have been bruised. I tell them all now, we laugh about it, but that's actually part of our sales pitch is that when we were doing it as an agency, my 10-year-old son was setting up all the accounts. But so we had done that, and that was sort of what led us to where we are now, which is teaching them how to do it themselves, because we had gotten I had to just become so systematized. But the reason I bring that up is because Travis, when we were having dinner that night, he was kind of just like putting I don't know if it was a joke or he was like,
well, no, I was in a point where I was just like, anybody who has any access to potential employment, I'm available.
Right. And my son was making like a couple $100 a week, he's like, I think there was a couple weeks where he made like $400, just setting these accounts up. He doesn't even know what to do with the money. And so we were joking about that at dinner, and Travis was like, hey, if Colin gets bored of doing that stuff, I'll type some stuff into the computer, Yeah,
it's kind of how I like work things in with my wife. I tell it as a joke, just so she says no. I'm like, yeah, I was just joking, but it's like planting a seed. I think that's somewhere in the Bible.
Yeah,
reap what you sow. So I'm really sowing a lot of stuff sarcastically, hoping it reaps long-term benefit.
Right.
That's great. Hey, listen, I want to jump into some questions right away about what you guys think that we need to do in our industry. And I know that mindset is a very big component with new clients right now. And how important is that mindset to building a successful martial arts school? Is the mindset thing that everyone talks about, is that a bunch of nonsense? Are they silly affirmations? Are people dreaming and goal setting? What is it really about it that, what's the process that you need to do to get this really working for a school owner?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one and then you can take on to the back of that. But I used to think, I went through a couple of phases. When I first got into sales in the timeshare business, that's all they talked about was mindset. And I bought right into it, and I did really well in that industry. And I worked my way to, I actually owned my own company in the timeshare business, and I thought this is awesome. And then that whole business just completely crashed and got pulled out from underneath me. And I was kind of like, it was impossible for me to avoid. And that destroyed my mindset for probably 3 years. And I thought that stuff's just a bunch of nonsense. It's stupid. I had a great mindset and my business went away. And I didn't really have a good understanding of what that actually meant. I was just so blindly following mindset and affirmations and all that kind of like, the book, The Secret, came out when I was in the timeshare business. And everybody was like, oh, it's The Secret. You just think about it and then it's just going to happen,
Yeah, manifest.
And so that kind of mindset training actually destroyed my mindset when stuff went bad. And it took a long time for me to kind of dig my way out of that. And it really took a coach saying to me, hey, man, look at where you've been the last 3 years. Your mindset really sucks. And I was like, no, it doesn't. I have a positive mindset. It's just that. And then I had this big list of excuses. And this coach said to me, you got to take 100% responsibility for where you're at right now. Even if you don't feel like it's your fault, if you give somebody else the blame, you also give them the control. And that was like a pivotal time in my mindset. And so I kind of look at a lot of these school owners who have been in business for 20 something years have worked themselves into a place where if nothing has really changed over the last 20 years, and maybe they've tried this or that or tried one thing or another and nothing really changed, it's a lot easier to come up with an alibi on why things haven't changed and blame other things. And I know it firsthand because I made all those same excuses for the longest time. And it wasn't until somebody said 100% responsibility. It's not that you have 100% control and you're some kind of Superman that can will things into existence. It's not that, but it's how you take responsibility for your own actions, and then you leave the rest up to God. I say God because I believe that there is a God and that he cares about us and he wants us where he wants us. But I think it's a principle that applies whether you believe in God or not, is if you take responsibility for your life and your actions and you let the rest of the results just kind of happen, and then you learn how to respond to those things, that's the first step. So we walk through, actually our training is 5 weeks, and the first whole week is pretty much mindset, but it's not the kind of like affirmation mindset. It's more of, it's more scientific than that as far as a process. We walk
like an equipping.
Yeah, we equip them. So and one of the biggest things about mindset is just believing that you can get the kind of results that you want. If you were to, let's say, if you knew nothing about Facebook ads and you knew nothing about advertising in general, if you put an ad out, how do you even know what a good result is?
Right.
Because Facebook will give you a bunch of analytics. They'll tell you, a gazillion people saw this ad and a bunch of people reacted to it and they all liked it and they clicked on it. Is that good? Are those good results? You don't know. So one of the first things we go through is knowing your numbers and knowing what you should expect. And then that way it makes it real easy to stay focused on a goal. Is I know if I spend this much, this is what's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then something's broken in the system, because the system we know works.
Right.
And as long as all the pieces are chugging, then, and you know what to expect, it's super easy to just set it on kind of autopilot and go check it and say, yes, it's on track. Awesome. If it's not on track, we know where to look. But if you don't know those numbers, that's part of mindset too,
right.
I think.
Yeah. And then kind of picking back off of mindset, I when I first came into this, I was like, hey, this mindset stuff is like all mumbo jumbo, like Tony Robbins, all that stuff. It's just ways to sell books and things like that. But then I kind of reflected back, and as martial arts instructors and school owners and teachers, and me as a football coach, when I coached football, it's funny how I would coach all my players and students on mindset for the athletic or for whatever they're doing. But then when it came to like business and personal life, I was like, oh, that's all kind of like mumbo jumbo. Like I'd tell players, hey, visualize the play before it happens. And same thing in martial arts, right? Hey, visualize, the match before you go into it. Or just, we would say things about players like, oh, they're not mentally tough, or, hey, they might not have the skill set, but they have mental toughness. So we'd apply all these things in what we were teaching others. But then I kind of had to self-reflect and say, well, why don't I believe that works for business or my personal life? But I'm a huge believer when it comes to athletics and things like that. So that was a huge kind of, light bulb thing for me.
That's awesome. It's so interesting that mindset. I love that you explained it, that it's not about the spiritual and esoteric only. Not just about visualization and focus. It's just having the right mindset on being a business owner. And Dwayne and I talk about, we probably did 3 or 4 podcasts on knowing your numbers. And I don't know, it's hard to get people to realize how important that is, because we have a saying that we use quite often: you don't know what you don't know. And if you're not sure what numbers to look at and how to analyze and see, school owners tend to be the type of people that say, okay, check, I got someone to do my media, social media, digital marketing, and they're done. They don't know whether it's working or what it should be performing like and how to tweak it if it's not. So mindset is a massive, massive thing. I'm glad you guys pointed that out. It's so important. Right, Dwayne, would you have any thoughts on that at all?
Well, it's kind of neat. I'm just curious how well received or not well received is that from your clients? Because what I like and what I'm hearing, is that you are setting the stage for them so that they can learn how to grow their business, as opposed to just saying, hey, here's all these tools, do this, do this, do this, do this. And I think without their identity changing, then they're not going to be able to sustain that goal. It's kind of like the guy in Frankfurt. You're throwing so many leads at him that he was like, whoa, slow it down. And that's partly also probably mindset, but then processes that he didn't have in place. And so I love that you have the mindset first. I'm curious, how is that received? Because most people say, hey, just give me the tools, give me the people. So explain that to me real quick.
I feel like, because I do a lot of the initial contact with school owners. And when I have those, kind of discovery sessions just to learn about their school and kind of where they're at, where they want to get, a lot of time it's really just focused on growth, right? What's working, what's not working. And if it's a good fit for them and it's a good fit for our program and everything, and they jump in and start working, I mean, 90% of the time, the first response I'll get back from people is, hey, I came into this for leads, but the mindset training on its own is worth everything that we've jumped into, because it's just, it's stuff that you never think about as a school owner sometimes, right? It's stuff that you don't it just doesn't cross your mind. And I think, I've gotten a lot of huge feedback, and it's something I don't really bring up a whole lot when I talk to school owners, because we are really focused on the business growth, but then I like it to be kind of like a wow, surprise for people at the beginning. So I'd say it's been received really, really well.
Yeah. I think the reason for it is because I think there's a lot of people out there teaching mindset and training on mindset that don't know what it means, how it feels to not believe that it's real. You know what I mean? There are a lot of people teaching it that just are 100% in and have just learned it themselves, and they're just regurgitating some kind of junk that they heard from some spiritual guide or something. Yeah. And they haven't really gone through the journey that I personally have gone through, which is I believed it, then I thought it was a bunch of nonsense, and then I had to really kind of rediscover what it really means. And I'm glad you brought up identity, because that's one of the first things we do. We actually have an entire worksheet where we go through their beliefs about themselves personally. And one of the mantras in that mindset training is there's no such thing as dojo problems. There's only personal problems that are reflected in the dojo. And you can spend your whole life, and you probably, if they're in our training, they probably have spent the last at least 10 to 15 years trying to fix the dojo and thinking, I just need this tactic. I just need this tool. I just need this shiny object. I just need this thing. And then everything will be great.
The new widget.
Exactly. And then when they go through this and they look and they self-reflect, and then they actually have to answer questions about themselves that no one ever looks at. It's just for them. They get a worksheet, they print it out, they write down their answers on it, and they can see the dichotomy between where they are and where they want to be. And they see that big gap, and they understand that it's all on them. I think that's where that epiphany moment, that was what it was for me. When I went through a very similar process and said, well, this is where I want to be, but this is what I hate to do. Well, guess what? If you don't do this thing, you're never going to get to that point. And people don't draw those lines and make those connections. And when we walk them through it, it's in a very direct way. And what's great, I think, about the way that we've got it laid out too is it's a lot harder for me to be on the phone with you and say, hey, man, you need to take 100% responsibility for this, and then listen to all their objections and overcome it that way. Our process is all on videos. So I can be really direct, and they can take it and they can accept it, and they can have all those objections bubble up in their minds. And then the video, we can kind of go through each one of those without the personal confrontation that sometimes comes up in that kind of coaching. So I think the platform actually that we've got it on, just by chance, it wasn't designed specifically.
Well, you're the only one in the room. So when you're going through it, the only person you can talk to about it is yourself, and you really need to dig in and look. So,
and I think another part of it too is, we have a private Facebook group for just our members, and we don't even ask them to do it, but they get in there and they're constantly gushing about the results and how great the program is and how everything is working and the process is awesome. And I mean, I remember a day last year, I was just scrolling and I couldn't get past like all of our client people going, oh, this is awesome. This is awesome. So when you're in a group like that, that's just feeding success and just living and breathing it, it's hard to be the only one there going, man, this is a bunch of nonsense, So I think that plays into it a little bit too. So maybe we got really blessed and by just getting a lot of clients that really dug into it early. And we were pretty picky at first too. Like there was a lot of times where Travis would be on the call and he'd be like, yeah, I didn't even pitch him because he didn't seem like a good fit. And we still are that way, because
you don't want to give a diet to somebody that I don't want to give a vegan diet to someone who loves steak. It's not gonna fit well.
Right. So. I agree. I'm a vegan. Yeah. Hey, so one thing comes to mind. I have just in addition to this question, and I want to jump onto something else. So, do you find that because you guys are not martial artists and you're experts in your field of how to get students, that you get less resistance? Because I find as a coach, sometimes it takes me months to break down a school owner's, their anchors and their attachments to the way they do it, the way they want it to be done, what they believe to be right. I can't do it that way because that would hurt my integrity and I'll be a sellout. And four fingers on the McDojo line. I don't want to be a McDojo. You probably have heard this kind of stuff. So do you find that it's easier for them to listen to you, and is it easier for them to change their ways because they're listening to people that are not so attached to the martial arts and they don't feel like it's just another karate guy trying to change the way I am? Do you find that different or not really?
I think it comes with its benefits and its challenges. I know there's I think maybe I've heard that from people like, hey, one of the things I really appreciated about your story is that you didn't start out in the martial arts. You started out in the marketing and then you got into martial arts because of how well your marketing skills worked and applied to that. So I've heard that.
Right.
But I think we also, there is some resistance to people that think, these guys don't know anything about martial arts, which honestly is not true. Even one of our clients was like on our Q&A call last week, he was like, you guys talk so much like we study martial arts school owners because we know, we want to help them. We believe in what they're doing. We believe that when you teach martial arts, that's like a calling. It's not just like you can't just go start a martial arts company. I mean, you have to go through all that training. There's a lot that goes into it. It's a lifestyle. And I saw the benefit of it in my son's life. And I see the benefit of it in all these kids' lives and grown-ups' lives. And, I see what it does for the world. And I think it's a good thing. And so we just want to help them as much as we can. So we study martial arts school owners and try to have the same kind of mindset. So to get to your question, as far as being easier, I think for some probably who would give resistance like you're hearing, it's probably easier for us because we can just be like, look, that's not. Yeah,
there's no bravado. There's no like, hey, I need to prove to you or kind of have that guard up. But there's also this thing on the other side, But there, like you said, there's advantages to it as well. Even when I was coaching football for a while, I never played football. And that was actually a really huge benefit because it made me go in with an open mind rather than be like, well, this is how I do things. This is how my grandmaster did things. This is how the school did things that I trained in. We're coming into this with like, hey, there's no barriers on what we can do. If something works, let's figure out if it works.
That's a good point.
And I think that's been a huge benefit. And that was, like I said, for me, for coaching, I went in and said, listen, I'm an open book. Let's learn. Let's get things going so we can benefit, the people that we're working with the best.
That's awesome. Very, very cool. So let me ask you this. Let's jump into some like golden nuggets, like little nuts and bolts of questions that people ask all the time. Like, what's the process for enrolling a new student, new students? And, do you advertise a week for free or do you do a trial or is it a one-class trial? And do you find that free trials devalue, everyone's saying, I don't want to give anything free, you're not going to be a good qualified client. Tell us a little bit about those things, if you could.
Yeah.
But before you dig into the free week, I probably in the last year, I probably talked to about 1,000 school owners, which is, I think there's 15,000 school owners in the country. So it's a big chunk of the school owners. And the number one thing that I think is a, kind of like a misunderstood aspect of their business is that they have an enrollment process. I'll ask every school owner, what's your enrollment process? And usually there's kind of like, well, we bring them in, we let them try a class, and then we sign them up. And I think it's just an answer to give an answer. And part of being a business owner is, do you have a systematized process that you can say, hey, I'm going to input A and I'm going to get B? That's a process. So there's value in having a process. So for those of you who are listening, I know Jon's going to dig into a process that we found works better than really anything, but that's a question I think you need to ask yourself as far as, well, what am I doing that is something that is predictable, right? If you're saying, hey, I'm going to sign people up by my gut or my feeling, hey, our feelings can change, right? Or someone could just be a different personality that's going to affect how you respond to people. As opposed to having a predictable process. If I put 9 people in a room or 10 people in a room, I know 9 of them are going to sign up today because it's something I've repeated over and over again. And that's knowing the numbers. You guys talked about knowing your numbers with your ads.
Yeah.
Those numbers apply to enrollment process too. So, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's definitely valid. So I've seen school owners, and we've tried when we were doing agency work and people would hire us to run their ads, my focus was always on students, because I knew that I had talked to enough school owners at the time when we started doing ads for people that ads just isn't enough. You can hire pretty much anybody to run an ad technically. Like, you can get in there and make an ad, and Facebook makes it easy. You can push a couple of buttons to boost a post. So I knew that there's a process that was needed, like Travis was talking about, because that was the biggest kind of hole that I saw. So there's lots of different ways to do it. The one that we really found that works the best is what we would call like a value ladder, where people are making tiny little micro commitments on their way from where they know nothing about martial arts all the way to the point where they become a paying long-term student. And so the reason that we like to do the free week is because it's a micro commitment. And I would like to abolish the myth of devaluing free weeks. Don't devalue martial arts. And if you want proof of that, I mean, I have numbers that can back it up from hundreds of schools. But if you just look in the world about what a free trial does, you look at the biggest companies right now, like Netflix, Hulu, Uber, all these companies.
Microsoft has a free trial of all, Microsoft Office.
Every piece of software you buy has some kind of free trial. And what a free trial does is it removes all the barriers and the excuses for people to try something they're not 100% sure of. And when you're advertising on a place like Facebook, especially, you're not getting people that are searching actively for martial arts. You're getting people that maybe thought about it, or who just kind of fit the demographic of someone that might enjoy martial arts. And so if you try and say, buy my stuff to somebody who's not 100% sure, you're going to scroll right past. So that's why we like that little micro commitment. Now, the secret behind that is we almost never give that free week away. And the first thing I hear when I say that usually is, well, that doesn't seem honest. It's a bait and switch. But we've actually figured out a way to make it very much where you can live with integrity, you can sleep at night, and you actually feel good about it. And we call it 2 offers. So you have 2 different offers, 2 introductory offers in your school that anybody can come in and try. You can do a free week. So we advertise the free week on Facebook right now. That's the platform that we're using. It's the best one there is so far. I'm sure that'll change someday, but that doesn't really matter. It's the offer that's important. So we do the free week. We schedule an appointment for them to either come in to do their intro or to make a phone call. Depends on, right now things are crazy. People are doing virtual classes, so we'll do it over the phone. But the process is basically an appointment. When they come in and they experience what a martial arts class is going to do for them, and they see the benefit of it, they have a good time. If it's for kids, mom and dad are seeing how you're actually working with their kids. At the end of that lesson, we just give them an option. And it's not a big, long sales pitch. It's about 3 sentences. We say, hey, I see you're here on the free week. That's great. You can do that. Little Johnny here can come in his street clothes and he can participate in the free week all week. That's great. We also have a different introductory offer. I personally think it's better, but I'll let you decide, Mrs. Smith, what you think is better. This one is a whole month for $67, and it comes with this free uniform. We like having the uniform there because it's something physical that they can bring home with them. And then we say this key phrase here is so that he feels like part of the class. And when they say he feels like part of the class, it does this like psychological, thing on mom where she's like, well, you're right. He was the only kid out there not in a uniform, so he probably should have a uniform. And this is all the stuff that's going on in mom's head. And I did spend about $100 on his Halloween costume last year, so this is definitely worth $67 just by itself. Plus, look how excited he's going to be running around looking like a karate guy. So yeah, let's do that. $67 and it's still a trial. That's the key. It's still a little micro commitment. It's just a little bit longer of a commitment, but she's already been in one class. And when you make that switch from a free trial to a paid trial, it changes something in mom's mind where now I'm going to get as much value out of this as I can while I'm trying it, right? We do that. We always do that. Like if you get something that's free, you're like, yeah, I'll get to that when I want to. But when you pay money for it, you're like, oh, we're going. So like what I see a lot of schools, the mistake that they make is they want to do 2 or 3 free classes and then sign them up for a long-term thing. And what we see happening there is they come and try the first one. They have a great time. They say they're going to be back Tuesday. And then Tuesday rolls around. And what's happening at home is Johnny's playing Fortnite And mom is like, come on, it's time to go to karate. It's your second class. And he's like, I don't want to, I'm playing Fortnite. And she's like, doesn't want to fight it. And she's like, all right, whatever. If she's paid $67, mom's grabbing the controller, go put your uniform on, we're going to class. So it changes, and it creates a little bit more of a commitment, but it's just still a micro commitment because it's only a month. And then what we do is about 2 weeks later, we give them an offer to apply that $67 toward their first month and just to enroll as a student. And the reason we do it 2 weeks early is because we give them that incentive to take what they paid and apply it. And that way, also for the school owner, they're getting that first month's revenue right away. And what we found is, as far as KPIs, I don't know how much value you guys want to drop on these guys, but that $67 trial will typically pay for all of the advertising. So if you're spending $67, you should get a trial out of that, which you could put back into advertising, which should become like this endless cycle of ad money. So we call it the flywheel effect. So the more you spend, the more of those trials you're going to sell. And that way, every student that signs up is basically zero cost in advertising. So you have this nice flywheel going over here with the trials, and then you're enrolling students 2 weeks after they come in, and it just becomes this clockwork thing. And that's basically our entire process in a nutshell.
Well, that's how you met Laura too. You offered her a free dinner.
Right.
And then you bought
at dinner. Right.
There you go. That's the way it always works.
That's right.
Exactly. Just like try it out for like 2 weeks, and then we'll see how it goes from there.
Yeah.
You know, it's quite interesting. I know Dwayne and I are running, and it's funny. Every Wednesday morning, with a bunch of my buddies that are all martial arts school, one friend that was trying out one class free, 2 classes free, and not getting any response. And then he was getting some people very small amount going right online, uniform. So I've been pushing him. Listen, I give out a month for free in my school. I create a Fall in Love program. And then within like 2 weeks, I'm already talking to them about signing up for their full year commitment. But I actually like it because I've been doing this for almost 30 years. And I find it took the pressure off me with all the, Ben Franklin closing, sales techniques, all the different processes that I would go through, hard sell, soft sell, smart sell, like all of it. It's just, so I got to the point where I was able to just say, hey, listen, I want to know that you love this program. And I also want to know that I love having you in my program. And let's feel it out for, a period of time. There's no commitment whatsoever, but the only commitment I ask is that you sign up and come in, and you show up and give us 1 month of your time. And it's been working incredible for myself and Dwayne and my buddy that I went out to breakfast. Finally switched over to doing it that way. And now he's converting like 60 to 70% of his people because he's not under that pressure of that first class, second class, third class. Like, we got to close them. We got to get them committed. And this day and age, people are looking to shop a little too. And they're afraid of commitments because they've heard the nightmares. So I love the concept of it. I'm thinking in my head as you were doing that, like, wow, how can I go from the 1 month free, but maybe sell them a uniform at $60, but give them the uniform. We give it away for free anyway. It's included in the price, but give them a little discount if they do commit sooner. So that's a great golden nugget that you shared with us, and I think that's phenomenal. So that's great. Can you tell us more about what kind of budget is good for school owners to advertise? What are the cost of leads? How much does it cost to acquire students? Some a little bit about that. Just roughly, we don't want to give away the farm in this call because you're sharing a lot of really great info. But please share with us on that. That would be interesting because I know school owners that old saying, you don't know what you don't know. They have no clue. They're not sure what to spend. So help us out there.
Yeah. Well, before you, knowing that is important from and that's kind of, something with being in control of your own marketing, right? I heard a speaker, kind of a motivational business consultant say one time, you hire someone to mow your lawn, you can hire someone to clean your house, you can hire someone to, do your garbage. You don't hire someone to date your wife. And your marketing is your wife, and you need to be in control of that, and you need to know what to do, right? So having a knowledge of how much, just because you don't know, you can hire an agent and they're going to say, oh, we're going to spend this and we're going to get this. And it's like, well, I don't know what that means. So that goes back to that mindset and knowing your numbers. Because once you know your numbers, then you can put them to the machine that John's going to, talk about and make sure that there's a return on that. So that's a kind of a mindset preface. And because we can sit here and say, oh, spend $20 a day. Well, there's a lot more behind that as far as knowing what those $20 are doing.
For sure. Yeah. So I love what you're doing with the Fall in Love program that you're doing with the free month. 60 to 70% is pretty respectable. That's a lot better than 90% of the schools that we talk to when we first get on the phone with them. I will tell you this, if you give this process that we're showing you a try, when you're booking appointments and they come into your school, we see almost I would say 90%, but it's really literally more like 99% of the people will take the paid trial over the free trial on day one, the first day they walk in. It's just a choice. It's not a hard sell. And that's, I think, what school owners love about it too, is that it's really literally what the conversation I just had was, I think it's a better deal. You can decide whatever you want. It's not a hard sell. You can do the free week. It's not a bait and switch, because if you were baiting and switching, you'd say, well, we don't do the free week anymore. You have to take the paid trial or go away. That would be a bait and switch. The honest thing is, if they want to do the free week, they can still do the free week. But if they want to upgrade on day one, it's $67. They get the free uniform, and then they can fall in love with you. That could be your fall in love program too. But we literally see 99% of the people will take that upgrade on day one.
Do you offer them that at the end of class, or right when they first come in?
Yeah, right at the end of class, not at the beginning. We've had some school owners try and do it at the beginning too, and that totally squashes it because they haven't experienced it yet. So the key is the students got to have one class. This takes them from that commitment level to the point where they're ready to sign up anyway, and they're excited about coming back for that next lesson. But when you get them to pay for that first lesson when you get them to pay for that first month, the first lesson, it switches in their mind. And that 60 to 70%, I bet you, I'd be willing to bet that it would go up to 99%. And then when you can do that, then you can pretty much count on everybody that comes in is going to pay money. And everybody that comes in that pays money is going to come back the next day. And that's it's not all about the money. I don't want people to think that all I care about is collecting money from them, but it puts commitment on them. $67 is like, I mean, if you think about the stuff we spend $67 on, it's like
family of 5 at McDonald's now.
Yeah.
I mean,
really.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not that much. And
yeah, I just ordered Chinese food last night I just ordered Chinese food for the family last night. It was $66 or something like that.
There you go. Right.
Exactly. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Next time you do that, Allie, just send me the money. I'll shoot you a uniform.
Would it be the Chinese food uniform or the dojo uniform?
We should get some uniforms. Yeah, we should get some uniforms. That'd be cool.
Allie, are you hungry
about a half an hour later?
I always am. And I'm vegan, so I
You're always hungry.
Anything. Yeah. So that's great though. I like the idea. It's rolling around in my head. I always know, listen, when people are in my free month trial, there's a percentage of them that will fully engage, and there's a percentage of them that will come for the 2 hey, it wasn't for us. Sometimes for 3 or 4 classes. You're not vested in the program. I get that. So I like that idea. I'm going to roll that around in my head as far as conversions and getting that going. I think that's a really great thing. I hope the listeners are hearing this stuff too. These are powerful things that they need to really pay attention to.
Yeah. So let me get into those numbers though. So yeah, I'll get into the budget that you asked about. So we typically have found that Facebook in particular loves a $20 per day budget or more. So we usually start everybody at about $20 a day. And the reason for that is because we like to see conversions, leads come in with name, email, phone number for under $14. So a lot of schools are getting leads for like $5 or $6. Some have to creep up into $20 range, but we never want to see it above $20, maybe just for like a small peak period. But typically we like to see a consistency of under $20, really under 14. That's kind of the gray area, is 14 to 20. And the reason for that is because Facebook algorithm needs results coming back in to feed the AI, I guess, to tell it that it's doing a good job. So if you're spending less than basically what one lead costs you per day, it's not getting enough data. Technically, Facebook, supposedly their algorithm, you have to get 50 conversions in a week for it to be fully optimized. Well, in the martial arts industry, there's very few schools that could handle 50 leads in a week anyway. I mean, you'd just fill up your classes too fast. You wouldn't be able to, it would be a waste of money to try and do that. But what we found is the minimum is if we can get a lead a day or more, then the algorithm will stay pretty steady and we can pretty much keep ads on indefinitely. And so we usually say $20 a day because it can fluctuate. We always try to keep the lead cost under $14. I'll give you some more metrics to expect. If you're doing a good job on your follow-up, 50% of the leads should book an appointment. 50% of those should show up for the appointment. So you're basically down to about 25% of your leads even coming in. But if you're using our process, we say pretty much all of those are going to sign up for a trial. We give you 90% as a leeway, but usually everybody. And then from that, about half of those are going to sign up and be long-term committed students that probably have a higher lifetime value than what you usually have anyway. So those are the metrics that we go by, and those are the expectations that we have in our program. And we know where to look if something's broken. So if we got a bunch of leads and not enough appointments, we know it's in the follow-up. If we got a bunch of appointments and they're not signing up or they're not showing up, then we know it's in the confirmation process. You know, we know where all those pegs are in the wheel and where all the holes are in the funnel. And then really, if you know all that stuff, you know what to expect, then you know exactly where to plug the hole. The biggest mistake we used to see when we were running an agency was everything was the ads' fault. So we could have a bunch of leads, a bunch of appointments, a bunch of people show up and no one's signing up for a trial. And they'd be like, hey, I want to change the ad. I think it's attracting people that are broke. And so I would have these hour-long conversations with school owners like, all right, well, let's see the numbers. And we break it down and we say, well, the ad's doing great because it's getting leads. And the appointment process is doing great because you're getting appointments. And then the appointments are showing up, so the confirmations are fine. When they show up in your school, they're not signing up. It's not the ad's fault. It's something you're saying at that appointment that's not landing correctly for them to sign up. And so that's what's good about knowing those numbers too. What'd you say?
I said, your classes suck.
Right. Yeah. You can't fix that.
I do have one question though in regards to that I get a lot from people that ask me about, ads. Do you find that, well, every area I'm sure it's different, but in my area, we've been running ads beginning children, little kids from 2 years to like 10 or 12 or 14 coming in for their classes. But I find that almost all of the adults that have signed up for a class, almost all of them have not showed up. I follow up, I call them, they reschedule, they don't show. I'm soft reschedule. I'm not like, what the heck's wrong with you? Why didn't you show up? But they reschedule again. And it seems like the adults are a harder market to get to show up for that initial trial. Is there anything that you suggest in that area?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely a harder market for sure. The way that our process is laid out is we strongly encourage marketing to those kids in that age range under 12 first and getting a good flywheel going with them. When you've got that in place, you've got some extra revenue coming in. If you're doing a really good job, some of that trial money can actually get filtered over to some adult ads too. With adults, if you're marketing just a straight up martial arts program, it's really hard to get anybody committed to that. The old marketing adage is it's got to have something to do with, health or money or sex are the three. Well, we can't do that one. We can't market that one. Maybe you can. Sex appeal, maybe. But the health benefit.
Well, he did say we should get uniforms. That might be the.
Oh,
yeah, that would be the good image.
Yeah. No. So if you're advertising, self-defense is a good, women's self-defense especially is a good one. The things you have to be careful about on Facebook is they're really nuts about some of the images you can put on Facebook. So it's hard to really drive a really strong self-defense ad because you can't show violence. You can't show fighting or sparring. You can't show weapons. Any of that stuff on an ad will get your ad account banned pretty quickly. So be careful on that. What we found works the best is men's self-defense classes separately, and then women's fitness. Like if you do like a cardio kickboxing or a cardio, some type of fitness workout as it's the micro commitment. We know we want to get them in for martial arts classes, but the initial attraction enough to get them into the school for the first lesson has got to be something to do with, for women, the health, like the fitness type programs, the exercise, the workout, the get sweating, burn calories type stuff. And then with the men, it's the self-defense. Even if you're the smallest guy in the town, you can beat up anybody with this special technique. Men want to exert their power over each other, and women want to look better and feel better, healthy. That's just psychological, not across the board. I've seen some, like in Florida, we've got a client that is flopped. He's flip-flopped. The women's self-defense is doing better and the men's fitness is doing better. So there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
And if you like cats, you don't want
them to be skinned anyway.
Right.
That brings us right back to the Chinese.
Food, I think.
And that's why he's a vegan. He knows the cats are in there.
Hence another reason why I'm a vegan, right?
I'm not a vegan. I got no problem with vegan.
Yeah, we'll have to have a talk about that later on.
I want to be clear with regards to what you guys do, because it's really unique.
What's really unique, I think, about your services.
You are educating
martial arts school owners, top to bottom, on how to get new students. I mean, hence the KarateStudents.com.
You're not running these ads for them. You used to, but now you've decided that this is what you want to be in, is you want to go ahead and educate them on how to do it themselves. They could be in control of their own marketing, understand it, so they can craft the way that they want to craft. You would add on to that that I kind of missed.
No, I think the best analogy for it is we want to model it the same way that school owners are modeling their schools. If a student came in and said, "Hey, I'll pay you $150 a month to be my bodyguard," that's probably not really something that you got into opening a school for, right? You got into a school to teach people to take something out of the school and have the self-defense, the confidence, all the stuff that comes with martial arts. And it was really just kind of like soul searching, like, hey, let's do what our school owners are doing. Let's get the school owners in, so then we can teach them and they can take it outside of, our room. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a very similar, thought process. And that's why I think it's such a good, we've seen such good success with it, because we're all kind of in that same wavelength of what we want to do for the people we're working with.
Yeah. And
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, as an agency, we had grown to a point where we really couldn't take on any more clients without really expanding our staff. And, in my past with the timeshare business, and we had a telemarketing office, I had like 60 employees at one time. And I never wanted to build a business like that ever again. It was just, having that many employees was a nightmare for me personally. I know there's some guys that want to go out and build the next, Amazon or Google, but not me, man. I don't want that. I want an intimate, small team that are experts and well-paid and are that do good work. I don't want to have somebody on HR that's constant. So as we grew, and then we could have just continued growing as an agency. Travis and I sat down and we were like, man, how do we grow this how do we reach more schools and help more owners without completely crashing the ship? And that was where we kind of brainstormed out this idea of, well, maybe we teach them how to do it. What would be the harm in that? We had it so systematized at the time, we could set up an account in like 30 minutes and they'd be ready to go.
Right.
We'd tell them 7 to 10 days. And the next day they'd be like, here's your ad. And they're like, what are you talking about? So we had it so systematized, but the real time consuming thing was all the coaching and all the process analyzation and all the phone calls. It wasn't even managing the ads. Half the time the ads were just like on autopilot for 18 months. And we just would like look at it and be like, okay, it's doing fine. There were some trouble accounts, but for the most part, it's easy. And so then we were like, let's just see if we can train somebody. And we actually, my mom is, to give you a little background on how easy the course, the way we set it, my mom is a technologically like not savvy at all. Travis gives her a real hard time on the phone calls, but the reality is like if she comes in and watches our kids, she's been to our house 1,000 times and still doesn't know how to turn the TV on. Like, how do you use this remote? Tell me again. Like, she's just not technically savvy. She never has been. When I was a kid, I was always hooking up the VCRs and stuff. So it's always been that way. So we were trying to figure out, like, who can we put through this course that we know will just have every question imaginable? And so my mom was the choice. And so it was not easy, but she got through it and was able to do it. And that was sort of our checkbox to go, okay, we know anybody can do this now. So, that was one of our first concerns, was the tech savviness, or the, just having too much to do. So we've really just kind of taken it step by step, and made it to where it's, autopilot. And we do offer coaching calls too. So people are able to come in and get specific questions. We run those a couple times a week for all of our clients too. So we don't just like, here's your course, see you later. We actually support it. And I love those calls, man.
Yeah, I personally love those calls. I was dealing with a separate thing for myself that I had bought for my family software wise. And I'm trying to get a hold of somebody. And I'm like, can I just sit down and like talk with somebody and help me out? And I was like, man, they need a Q&A call like we have.
That's the biggest thing too. I get so frustrated. I'm just having a problem right now with Instagram where they shut down one of my accounts for no apparent reason, and I can't get through to anybody. They give me the list of things, everything I tried, they I lost years worth of work of building an account because there's no one to talk to. So that one-on-one, I mean, that's being lost in our society, and people really appreciate it. So is your course a short-term learning period, or just you get continued ongoing training, you become a member of your training? How does that actually work?
It's a 5-week course. It's laid out at 5 weeks. It's on demand though. So we've had some people that just speed right through it and get it done in a week. We've had others that took a couple of months to go through it and just took their time, but it's all on demand. And then it's a lifetime membership. That's what we're doing right now. I don't know if we'll continue doing that, but so far it's been working out great because it's one subject matter and you can have lifetime access to it. We can support that. We have a software business too. So it's not like we're not doing the Q&A calls anyway. And we're there twice a week. So what happens is they'll go through the course. Anytime they have any problems, they can jump on a Q&A call with us on either Monday or Thursday at noon. That's the timings that we're doing them now. We've been doing, I think that works the best timing wise because pretty much all of our clients are in the US, we have a couple overseas, we got some people in Australia and Europe. But for the most part, that time seems to work good because it's early morning in California, and then it's lunchtime in East Coast. So that's the timing. So we give lifetime access to the coaching calls twice a week. And then the on-demand portal, if you went through it the way it's laid out, it takes about 5 weeks.
Awesome. Very, very cool. And I just was on the website and I'm looking at a lot of your testimonials, and it seems like most of the testimonials are older instructors. And I say that because, those are the guys that are sometimes the hardest to train. So if they could do that, they're able to, get into the 21st century, so to speak, and learn these methods. Then the younger tech savvy people will breeze right through it and be able to really incorporate it. So that's pretty cool that those are the people there that are doing those testimonials. So Dwayne, I this is a great interview, and we're out of time. We could probably go on for another half hour, 30 minutes. But maybe we'll just follow up. Maybe another follow-up day with you guys another time.
That'd be awesome.
Sure. Yeah. Do you have anything last to finish up with?
Yeah, I do. First off, thanks for being on the podcast. We really appreciate it. And look, if you guys interested in what how they can help you with your business, go to KarateStudents.com. All the information there. I have some sort of free offer, and then they can do an upgrade, or the whole process. I'm sure KarateStudents.com, and why wouldn't it be, right? But look them up and see their information, and they can help you out. I really think it's a really neat idea that you're giving these tools to school owners that don't want for them. They want to do it themselves. That's really neat, because I can tell you years and years ago, thing. I tried to learn how to do it. I was doing it for a while, and then it got stuff that I realized, like, I don't have time to learn this. You guys to put it in a course. Somebody can pick up, even your mom can understand and do. I think it's really neat. I do want to remind everybody that go to schoolowner.com for all of our past episodes if you're interested in picking up and learning any information. And then lastly, gentlemen, I was going to say last words. Any last things you want to say?
Now, I want to appreciate you guys for letting as soon as Dwayne, we connected, it was funny because Andrew Hashu, I think, is a mutual friend. And then I posted something earlier, Allie, and Terry Dow was like, "Oh, Allie's also." It's great to connect with people that are connected with people that, are part of our community and stuff. So
that's awesome.
So the volumes that you guys provide to the industry. So I appreciate the opportunity to join you guys.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's our pleasure, and we'll have you back again. We definitely need to talk more about so many of the other things that are involved in really being a good school owner that are behind the scenes, the training and how to close and how to. So we'll get back into that. But you guys are awesome, great interview. We appreciate you, and thanks for being here with us. And the listeners will get something out of it.
Yeah, and I really hope that nobody was offended with regards to food, skinning cats, and the fact that you guys really aren't 6 feet apart and not wearing masks.
We're in Georgia, though, and we both had it already, so we're good.
We got it in.
And I'll probably get Chinese food for dinner now.
And us vegans, I'm a little offended as a vegan with all your comments, but we'll have to talk about that privately. So,
thanks, guys.
All right, guys. Take care. See you soon.
See you soon.
All right, bye.